I think we'll get started with some of the introductory information, and then we'll get people added on here as we go. So welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're looking forward to talking with everyone and checking in on how things are going and gearing up for the next few activities and parts of the planning process. This is Gretchen Godfrey from the National PTAC at PACER, and Julie is here with me.
Hi everyone.
And so once again, just a reminder, if you haven't yet entered your audio pin, so please do that so that we can unmute your line. We will be having the phone line open so that we can have some discussion throughout the call. If you need to mute your line at any reason during the call because of any background noise or anything, you can just hit *6 on your phone, and then you can hit *6 again to unmute yourself again. So that is the process for that. You'll know that your audio pin has been entered correctly if you have a green phone icon next to your name.
Am I muted or can you hear me?
You are with us now. Hello.
Hi, Mike Mitchell from Center here.
Mike.
Hi.
So this is our agenda for the call today. We'll go around and do introductions, and then we're going to review the overall project goals, go over the timeline for the next few months, go through Section 4 in depth, talk about some intersection between different centers' goals as part of their plan, and then go through next steps, and then anything else that others want to bring up. But before we get right into our agenda, we thought we'd start with an interactive activity.
Well, first let's just quickly go around and just, if everybody could just take the opportunity to say your name and your organization real quick.
Let's start with Region 1, so Centeria.
Mike Mitchell from Center here, Inc.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Region 2. Okay. Region 3.
Hello, Mary's here.
Hi, Mary. It looks like Kathy's on, but she doesn't have her audio up.
Kathy's on here too. She's, I think, trying to listen in on her computer.
We just have it set up through the phone line this time, so Kathy, you'll have to call into the 877 number that's in the GoToWebinar toolbar.
Okay, I'll call and let her know right now.
Great, thank you. Region 4.
She's on vacation this week, so.
Region 4, it's Seal and Rose are at the Peel Center.
Great, welcome. All right, and Region 5?
I can see that Elaine and Jessica have joined. If you guys could enter your audio pin, please do that, and then I can unmute your line.
Terrific. Anyone else from Region 5? Okay, Region 6?
I know we got Matthew on here. He might have.
Yep, Matthew was
hi,
on.
I'm Matthew Johnson from TASK here in Region 6. We also have Marta and Chando listening in on the call. I don't know if she has audio yet.
Okay. Terrific.
Looks like we got Luce here. Luce, I just unmuted your phone.
Hello.
All right, and we're connecting JC right now on the phone.
Okay, fine. I'm on now. Sorry, I was having some troubles.
Okay, well, we're glad you're here. We're going to get started with just a little activity that is not directly related to TLI, but it's more in celebration of April 15th, Tax Day. And we also just wanted to do an illustration of how polls can be used in your GoToWebinar. Gretchen, can you go ahead and launch the poll? And the poll should be up on your screen right now. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
And it says, when are 2010 taxes due? And you just need to vote on that poll. A is April 14th. B is April 16th. C is April 18th. And D, taxes are waived this year. We'll give everybody 5 seconds to vote here.
I want the last one.
We do have some voters for that.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to close it here.
Yeah, the consensus, and Gretchen's going to show the results here.
All right, so everyone should be seeing the results now.
And it looks like C, 91%, April 18th. And just a little bit of random factoid sharing is that April 15th has been historically the date since 1955, but when it's a day that's neither a weekend nor a federal holiday, your taxes are not due. So that's how it's come to the April 15th date, because in Washington, D.C. this year is celebrating Emancipation Day today, a day earlier than the 16th because that's a Saturday. So just a little bit of history on that. And then one more quick question about it. Gretchen's going to show our next poll here. How many times have taxes been due on April 18th? It's a little harder.
All right. Like we have, we'll keep it open for 5 or so more seconds.
Okay, we're going to close out our voting and show the results.
All right.
All right, results. And the answer to that is letter C, 0. If the taxes have ever been due since 1955, when they switched the date from March 15th to April 15th. And I tried to research why that happened, but I could not find out why. If anybody wants us to send information, I can share that later on in the presentation. But with that, we're going to turn the next section over to JC.
Okay. Well, we thought we would just kind of go over, Gretchen, I still have the quick poll on my screen.
Okay, oops, thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So we thought we would just go over the logic model for the project because, as you know, we've been calling and checking in with everybody just to see how things are going and to make sure that we're meeting your needs as far as technical assistance goes for the project. And there's been some, I guess, discussion about, kind of what was the point of the project? What are we really trying to do here? So we thought we'd just go back to the original logic model that was created. And Carmen, for the most part, wrote this with the input from the management team. So if you just look at the activities, develop the model, we've done that. Implement the model, that's what we've done as well. And then right now we're working on kind of the last 2 parts, which is develop training on the use and implementation of the model and evaluate. So we've been doing that as we go along. These are under outputs here. And then under outcomes, we've got the short-term, medium-term, and long-term outcomes. And you can kind of see there maybe where you might be flipping back and forth between some of these. But we're trying to increase collaboration among the parents in our network. So we think that that's been a really positive aspect of this project because often we don't talk that much with centers outside of our region. So it's been really exciting for us to get to come together nationally across all regions for this project. And then increase the use of model for technology planning. So we're hoping that that's happening, that you're using the model that's been provided to do some planning at your center. Increase knowledge of technology and its role in carrying out your mission. This is hopefully a real focal point that we've tried to really touch on, is that you really want to be thinking about technology not as a separate item, but as something that is infused into your daily planning, and that it always comes back to how is it helping you more effectively meet your mission. And increase knowledge of best practices for technology and nonprofits. Hopefully you get a healthy dose of that at N10 at the NTC conference. And then, I won't go through all of these, but there's the medium-term and the long-term outcomes. And the biggest long-term outcome is going to be improved management of your parent center, improved outreach to families and professionals, and improved services to the families and the children that we all serve. So we're hoping that this might help a little bit. There was some questions about whether or not you're supposed to have done everything on your plan and implemented everything on your plan by the time the project is over in September. And we just want to be clear that that is absolutely not expected at all. So the real focus of the project right now is just to come up with a really solid plan. The analogy maybe might be you're building a house. And right now we're creating the blueprint. You don't want to just start nailing a bunch of boards together because then the whole thing is just going to fall down. So we're really just trying to help everybody be strategic about their planning and come up with a solid plan. And then could we switch to the other logic model? And after this, I'll ask if there's any questions. This is a little hard to see because it's, thank you, it's getting bigger. Wow. See, isn't that cool technology here? This is the logic model that was done by John Kenyon, and this was kind of for his portion of the project. And he's got his own short-term, medium, and long-term impacts. A couple of the ones that I thought were kind of good to highlight for him was basically improving the way your parent center runs, the business practices at your parent center, and seeing where technology can be used to support that. A real good example of that was the example that Jessica gave at the training in January about how she had streamlined a reimbursement process using some technology. So that's just an example. Another example on here under the short-term outcomes, I believe, I'm still having a little bit of a hard time reading it, but these are both of these logic models are posted on the wiki. So if you want to go back later and look at them, please do. But the other thing on here is, just having a really clear plan that you can give to funders in terms of getting money to support your center and support technology for meeting your mission. So those are a couple of things on here that I thought were important to highlight. So I think that's all I really wanted to say about those two logic models. We thought it might be helpful just kind of midway in the project to revisit them and to ask if there were any questions about the overall view or goal of the project. So Gretchen, I don't know how this works, if you unmute people or what, or if they type them in.
Everyone, it looks like we've been able to successfully unmute everyone. So, it's a relatively small group, so people can feel free to just speak up if they have any questions on this. And I'll also mention that we are recording this webinar, and so besides the recording, we'll post a copy of this PowerPoint too, so that you can enlarge some of these. The logic models I know are hard to read on kind of a smaller screen, so we'll make sure you have able to access them and read them more carefully. But does anyone have any questions on what JC just reviewed for us? Doesn't sound like it. We are going to move into some more specific timelines later throughout the webinar, so maybe more questions will come up as we go through that.
Okay, great.
But we just thought it'd be helpful to kind of go back to the big picture now that we're kind of really getting into the heart of the planning process.
One other thing I just wanted to throw out there was that Barb wanted me to tell everybody that she's sorry that she couldn't be on today, but she is right in the middle of finishing her PPI proposal, which is due today. So she says hi to everyone and that she'll be sure to listen to the recording, but she was sorry to miss the call.
Thanks, Jay. Great, thank you.
Okay, so I think we can go to the next. Okay, so Julie has worked hard on trying to make the roadmap a little bit more user-friendly and easier to read. And we are looking at kind of the same thing in two different formats on this slide. So we've got the lower section is timeline by month, and then the upper one is by section, so by deliverable. So right now, most of you have done a really great job of completing more or less sections 1, 2, and 3 of your plans and posting those parts on the wiki. And everybody, I think, knows now that they have a center page where we're asking you to post. Originally, we had assignment dates that we were having you post by, but we kind of reconsidered that and thought it made more sense just to have all of your information on one page. So don't worry, if you did post on the assignment pages, I went ahead and cut and pasted that information for you to your center page, so you haven't lost anything. And I think Roger is going to, if he hasn't already, he's going to delete those assignment pages any minute now, so they won't be there anymore to confuse you. But just keep working on your plans and posting on your center pages. We're moving into section 4 right now, which is update of technology areas, and looking at that. So hopefully, if you have any questions about what you're supposed to be doing in that, or need some clarification, you can contact either Julie or Gretchen or I or Roger, and we'd be more than happy to give some individual TA on that. We're hoping that, kind of big picture, we're hoping that the plans are going to be completed in July, and then that will give us some time for, well, it's completed at the end of June, and then we can review them in July and give some individual feedback, and then that'll give you some time to make revisions and then resubmit in August. So that's kind of the big picture scope, and then that'll also give us some time in September to wrap up loose ends and maybe do some specific TA on certain kinds of technologies that might benefit you, or sharing strategies among the group. So that's just kind of the big picture of where we're headed. Are there any questions about that?
Hello?
Hello? I'm sorry, I hear a lot of traffic or something, but did somebody have a question?
Godfrey, I can.
Yeah, that was me. Hi, everyone. Godfrey here. And I had the window open. That's what you heard was a fire engine going by.
Oh, okay. Hi, Godfrey.
Don't panic.
It's bringing a little bit of New York to all of us.
That's right.
All right. Well, I think then we'll move on to our next section, and then we'll be coming back in more depth to section 4 in a minute here. So the next thing we're going to do, like Jason said, we did create some center pages on the wiki, and so I'm going to actually pull up the wiki just to be kind of go through some things for everyone. So we have I have the home page of the wiki here pulled up, and we just some feedback we heard was that it'd be really helpful to share with everyone kind of where to go for kind of critical pieces of information, and not get overwhelmed with the whole wiki, and kind of to focus in on some. Do that for you. Sorry about that.
Sorry, guys. Godfrey? Godfrey? Hello?
Yeah, Michael?
Yeah, I'm just going to tell Godfrey he can mute his phone.
Yeah, I muted his line for him. So.
Okay, good.
No, I took over the control there. But anyway, I wanted to, here's the home page of the wiki. We're kind of doing a little bit of cleaning up, like JC said. So just to kind of point out some key areas, you'll see there's a kind of a maroon bar right at the top that says current activity. And we're going to always post any time-sensitive announcements right here to this section. So you'll always be able to go there for, you know, like here's the announcement about today's webinar, which will be removed after today's, and so will no longer be current. And then underneath that is section 4 of the plan, because that's in the timeline. Kind of section 4 is the stage that people are working on. And then we just have the project timeline right under that, so you have a quick glance to those key pieces of information. And again, and then to go over some navigation, the top navigation here, some key areas you want to look at, the discussion, so that you have quick access to any of the discussions going on. You can just remember those are right at the top there. You can also go to the recent changes page if you want, that shows kind of all the changes that have been made to the wiki if you just want to see, what's happened in the last week or so. And then below that, there's a home link, and then under that are really the key pages that you'll most need to pay attention on throughout the project. The project roadmap home goes to each section of the roadmap. Like JC said, most people are complete with sections 1 through 3, but then you can just get access to all of those. Also, really important is the center pages. So here's where you can find where all the information that you have posted, so that all of your parts of the plan are all together in one place. And then we just have some other key pages of information about M10 evaluation and things like that. So hopefully that just gives a little bit of a guide of how things are arranged. Again, I did post a video on how to monitor pages. I'm not sure if anyone had a chance to look at that, but I'm just going to walk through that quickly. And by monitoring a page, what you do is you can sign up to monitor that page, and then you can get alerts to whenever that particular page is modified, and that way you don't need to worry about getting notified when every single change is made. But for example, I might want to get notified when any change is made to the home page, because then I'll know when a new announcement is posted. So all I have to do is click on this Notify Me link that's at the top. In this case, I'm already following this page, so right underneath it says Notify Me by email of page edits, and that's what I've chosen to be notified of. And I can click on Update, and you're all set. If you want to know, if you're not sure if you've signed up to receive any updates from any pages, you can go to your account page and just click on your name that shows up at the top of the screen, and there's a page right in the middle that says Monitoring. It just tells me I'm monitoring changes to 2 pages and 1 discussion topic. So then you can just click on those 2 pages, and it tells me I'm monitoring, the home page and the national PTAC page. And we're just going to go back to the home page here. There's also right at the top, there's this Wiki Help page link. And that's where the the video is, where I walk through those steps. So if anyone wants to look at that again later or share with other staff, that walks through the process of how to monitor pages on the wiki. Does anyone have any questions either on monitoring pages or the wiki in general? All right, sounds like not right now, so I'm going to turn things back over to Julie, who's going to talk about Section 4 of the roadmap.
All right, hello everyone. What we're talking about with this section are just the tools that are available to achieve the deliverables for Section 4. And Gretchen, can you try clicking on the wiki link right now? Either that or go back to the wiki. So Section 4, so Project Roadmap. And so on this page, these tools are also posted. And then Gretchen, click on Center Pages Home. And then just choose one of the center pages. How about the top one, Denver Metro? And Gretchen's going to scroll down here. And again, where you're updating Section 4 is just right in that piece there. And I think JC has put that text on every single center page on the wiki. So that's where the deliverables will be updated. Then we go back to our PowerPoint. And Gretchen, if you can click on PowerPoint Show. And then click Next. I thought it would be helpful to just kind of run through what's expected with Section 4 because one of our next activities we're going to brainstorm a scenario And so I'm not going to go into great detail about what Section 4 encompasses, but just give us a nice overview. To go to the next page, Gretchen. So with Section 4, we're looking at what are your needs for your top 3 technology initiatives. So for each of your 3 initiatives, this next step in the plan asks that you explore infrastructure, the technical support needed to make it happen, what's the training that's going to be needed, what are some changes that you might need in your data management structure, i.e. your database, how are you going to collect information about the changes, and then also a communications program, which could include such things as how are you going to notify people about these changes. And the asterisk part just says each of these 5 areas may not be needed for each of your technology initiatives. Next slide. And this next page here just illustrates kind of the way the technology plan is visually set up right now. And so it's designed, that would be, for example, one initiative. Again, you'd be looking at each of those 5 areas: infrastructure, technical support, tech training, data management, communication program. And then under each of those 3, you would examine what your current status is, what the potential resolution is, and what your implementation plan might look like. And I want to mention, too, with each one of these sections, especially as we're moving into 4, 5, and 6, this isn't necessarily a strictly linear plan. You may write something down for these at this time and realize as you continue to brainstorm and dialogue and think about it that you're going to go back and change some of these areas or fill them in. Next page. This page, it's not in the current roadmap, but I included it just because I'm a visual thinker, how I put information together. So this is just another chart or an illustration about how you could formulate your information. So again, those gray bars just each contain one of the 5 categories. And then I aligned status, resolution, and implementation next to each other so that I could look at, what's across the board, what's happening. Okay, I have my status, what I'm going to do to resolve the situation, how I'm going to implement that. So this chart here is just another way of thinking about the layout that we saw in the previous slide. And we just want to encourage you to explore different ways ultimately to present your technology plan. The wiki is kind of your working space, but ultimately you may think about other ways than just the wiki to have your technology plan laid out. Keeping in mind our little roadmap analogy, I put task. I also called it stops along the way. But some of the tools or some of the background work that you've already done will be helpful in thinking about how to structure Section 4. Next slide. And this just again reiterates the deliverables that are due on April 30th or approximately, and a link on where to post them. Next slide. And again, this PowerPoint that I'm showing right now is posted to the wiki, but we wanted to have a link back to where you did your tech inventory spreadsheets. Those are still posted on the wiki. Chapter 7 in Managing Technology to Meet Your Mission has wonderful information that correlates back to this activity too. We'd really highly encourage you to review that section. And the next bullet there is, Gretchen, if you click on that, this also has the slides that John went through at his January, at our January, I think it's 28th training, and just gives you some more things to think about in developing Section 4. And we can click through all the slides. And again, those are available through the wiki. All right. Okay, going on to our next slide here. And that again just is the table there. If we go ahead one more slide, Gretchen. Okay. All right. We're going to try something, and I'm going to ask Roger, or I can frame it up too. But we thought it would be helpful to just to take a sample initiative, and it was one that was actually discussed with Marcia Goldberg at some point along the project way, and to take that sample and have us as a group to just kind of start thinking through how these steps apply to a scenario. And this isn't a right or wrong, activity. And it also might be a little tricky just having us all conferencing in and not, being able to have those cues of being able to look at each other, when to talk and things. But we just thought it's a helpful dialogue to hear, and brainstorming is such a powerful tool to really start thinking about these things. And Gretchen's going to try and capture some of the information that we share as we move forward here. And actually, we'll post that to the wiki after the training too. Roger, did you want to share a scenario?
No, I think you're doing great, Julie. Go ahead.
Does that make sense what I just said to everyone? What I'm going to do is to lay out a kind of initiative that's been talked about before, and then we just want the group to start throwing out ideas, and then we'll walk through each one of those steps. Step 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, and think about, and again, this is just starting the process. We're not going to resolve it here, but we just thought it would be helpful to illustrate what you're going to be doing for your activity. Okay? Thumbs up? All right. The scenario that Marcia had shared with the group was that, and maybe Marcia, you want to jump in here too, but that is one initiative is how do we reach families, and I think this is one that applies to so many of our parent centers. How do we reach families that don't typically have ready access to technology? And, and that's probably a very big picture initiative. I think we should just leave it at that and just start some brainstorming and some dialogue, because this one might involve some very low-tech solutions too, which I think is interesting. Gretchen, you want to add anything to that? Or JC or Roger?
No.
No? Okay. So if anyone wants to jump in, and if you have this as one of your initiatives, better yet, but let's just start thinking about what are some ways that you can reach families that traditionally don't have really solid access to computers, to internet, things like that.
This is Kathy. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. One thing I would suggest, and I think Mary and Cindy and I have talked about it, is making computers available in various public places like libraries throughout the state, where parents can go and review our materials or participate on our online trainings or something. So there would need to be some kind of collaborative process with various public places to make that happen.
Okay, that's great. Okay, other ideas?
Something else. This is Mary. You can hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Something else that we've done is we've had several of the state improvement grant people here have gathered families in central locations to participate in these webinars, where they will bring everybody together and possibly a computer lab at the local school or something like that, where they can participate in webinar training. And that's been successful where they've done it at.
That's a great strategy. Okay. Other ideas?
This is Matthew at Task.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi. We mentioned that a lot of low-income or non-English-speaking families might not have access to computers, but the more data that comes in, the more it looks like they've sort of jumped the computer step straight into the mobile step. So it might be worth doing outreach via social networking apps on smartphones and iPhones and that kind of thing.
Beautiful. Love it. Okay. Other ideas?
This is Jessica with South Dakota Parent Connection. Maybe reaching with different mediums of information that aren't necessarily online, such as interactive kiosks or DVDs, things like that.
Excellent. Love it. Okay, you guys are great. Okay, it's, any other ideas anyone wants to share?
This is Mike from Center here. Can you guys hear me? Hi. Yeah, Godfrey and Cassandra and I had spoken about this, and two things. You know, we deal a lot with people who don't have the resources to have internet access at home, and the gentleman who just mentioned that they've kind of made the leap to accessing internet through phones is very true, and we had come across an article that had talked about that. So we have been looking at that as well, and we also talked about making our lab here on 125th Street available. We have a computer lab with 6 stations, and we also considered, if we could find the funding, to reopen a storefront in another low-income neighborhood that would make a small storefront that would also make terminals available to people from low-income neighborhoods. And also we discussed working in conjunction with the New York City Public Library.
That's great. I love it. I love it. Okay. Other ideas?
This is Luz Hernandez from Philadelphia CUNY. We also are in the process of trying to establish a computer lab at CUNY where parents can have access to the internet and provide them with the basics on how to use computers and the internet. However, when it comes to the cell phone use, what we've seen is that parents change their numbers. They do have access to mobile numbers, but they change their numbers quite often, which makes it complicated to be able to really use it as a viable source for networking that way.
Okay, that's a very good point. Great ideas. Great stuff. If there's more, we're happy to hear them. Otherwise, we can take the ones that have been mentioned and then start, we could just take one idea and then start looking at and brainstorming what the infrastructure upgrades, et cetera, would be needed. Does anyone want to throw anything else out there? Okay, Gretchen, you want to read those back?
Some of the main ideas suggested were computer kiosks available in the community or computer labs, whether it's storefronts, library use, classrooms, things like that. Mobile technology, DVDs. Those were kind of the main 4 areas that were brought up.
Okay. Do we want to take one of those ideas then and just start breaking it down? Does that sound like a plan? Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to, let's see, what were those last 2, Gretchen? DVD and mobile. Mobile? How about, do you want to take either DVD or mobile? Anyone have a preference? Okay, well, let's just start with DVDs, and I'm assuming that it would be DVD distribution. So if you haven't done that before in your center, how would you start to approach it?
Hello?
Oh, Godfrey's here. Sorry, Godfrey, I didn't have you.
You have cut me off. I've been bursting at the seams. But actually, your idea, one of the things that we talked about at our center, and because a lot of our parents either don't have access to this technology or do not know how to use it, when I do workshops, I always conduct a little informal survey at the beginning asking who has computers and internet, and I'm beginning to see a little bit of an uptick. But they have no idea of how to access the information. One of the things that we're discussing here, and we've begun to do this, we're videotaping our workshops on flip videos, and part of our plan will be to transfer the content onto DVDs that you're talking about now, and then distribute that to our parents. Everyone has a DVD player. And that way they can have access to information about disabilities, resources, and how to be advocates for their kids.
That's wonderful. So, Gretchen, Godfrey, you might be, you guys have the same first and last name. You'd be a wonderful one to just look at number one then for the infrastructure upgrades. What is needed in, in disseminating DVDs?
Well, one thing that we would need is access to a place, a company, or the machinery that would let us burn workshop content onto DVDs at a, reasonable price, or maybe even for free. I mean, otherwise we cannot get the disc out. That way we could distribute them at conferences, at health fairs, at workshops, and all that. So having access to the machinery, that technology would be essential to implement this part of the plan.
Terrific. Okay. Anyone else want to comment on infrastructure upgrades?
This is Mary with Louisiana. We do have access to that machinery. We just recently purchased it because one of our grant goals in our new grant is to do a lot of outreach via DVDs with our trainings and manuals and a lot of paperwork. And one of the things we've taken a step back to think about, Kathy brought up recently, she said, do we want to burn a DVD or CD of just one thing when it'll hold so much stuff? Maybe we need to, figure out what really we want to put on it so when that we disseminate them, we can make sure you get the most bang for your buck, because even though it's not real expensive, you still got, to pay for them and to send them out. You want to be able to put as much stuff on there as possible. Now, we don't know a whole lot about this. We've just actually had the machine set up. We have not even run our first run of them on there. But one of the things that we would, in all probability, be willing to do is allow other people for, I don't know that there would be a big cost markup or anything, but to have access to that machine. So, and we could share that kind of stuff with other people. If you sent us, and Kathy may be able to get more give us more information here as far as, can you send something and we just burn it? Does it have to come in a certain format? But I think that would be something that we could certainly share with other people.
That's an excellent idea.
Terrific. Thank you, Mary. That kind of falls under technical support improvements. What sort of technical support would you need to implement creating DVDs is what we want to think about there. Anybody else want to comment on just technical support improvements? I think Mary, you mentioned
Mary.
Yeah.
You need to learn how to use the machine, and then what different file formats or things that need to be loaded on there. Those are great.
And Kathy may know how to use the machine. Mary Jacob don't know how to use the machine.
Kathy's read the instructions but hasn't actually used it. It is a sensitive machine, though, so if you need to, or you probably should, assign just a handful of people to be able to use it and train them thoroughly, because I don't know that let a whole lot of people have access to it at any point.
Exactly. And I think that falls right under 1.3, the technology training there.
Right.
And then, for example, with this scenario, how about data management program changes? Things that you can think of that would need to be considered in doing update.
This is JC. If you aren't tracking who you send CD or DVDs to because you haven't done it before, that might be something that you want to add to your data collection.
Yeah, that's a great thought. Make sure you're tracking your dissemination numbers.
And tracking who got what DVD, and
maybe even some sort of form of evaluation of it.
So, and I have a question about the data management portion. It's always been something in the back of my mind. How important is it for PTIs to collect the type of media the information is disseminated on, such as was it sent on a DVD or a CD, or was it a particular document or something emailed? Is there any importance about maintaining data on the media used?
Well, this is Gretchen, and I guess my response to that with Carmen and Marcia on the phone, who can correct me if I'm wrong, would be that a lot of that would depend on how your grant goals are written, and if you had a required activity in your grant to disseminate a certain number of DVDs, you'd want to be real, specific about tracking whether it was on a DVD or whether you emailed something, and if it was overall dissemination, it might not be as critical.
Okay.
So I think a lot of that would depend on, ensuring that you're able to report to whichever funder,
to meet your objectives and go, yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
And what I envision, Kathy, is that we would have, in the drop-down menu, that would become one of the things that they can choose.
Right.
Okay. And then, say, for example, as far as communication program updates, can you think of things that you might want to explore within your center that would be tied back to, releasing DVDs?
Yeah, I got here again, New York City. One of the things that's really important to us is to get feedback from the audience, whether they be parents, about the effectiveness, appropriateness of the workshop. And since we did mention getting this information out to parents in DVDs, I'm trying to figure out how we will get feedback back from them. Do we enclose in a hard copy of a feedback form in that same envelope, or do they call in a number on their cell phone so they could just respond to a survey?
Or a web link, or all of the above?
Yeah,
yep,
right.
Those are all good ideas, and those are the things, this dialogue is exactly, it's such a great illustration, and some of those, we may not have the answers for right now, but just to include them in this whole process of looking at your technology areas is really important.
One of the things that we started doing is we got a business reply permit, and we include a postcard that they just have to fill out 3 questions, hold it so that the business reply is on the outside, and then it comes right back to us.
Okay, that's good.
All right, thank you, everyone. That was great dialogue, and I hope that kind of just brainstorming helped. And I think it's a great example of what you can start to do with your technology team within your center. And, we're hoping to offer more opportunities like this in the future with this TLI 8, too. As we're kind of nearing the end of our time here, we've got 2 more things on our agenda. The first is something we're calling, I called it TLI Fun. If you've are any of you familiar with Family Feud? That used to feature Richard Dawson, and I think somebody else before that. But this is a little game that's kind of based on that game show. And I thought it would be fun in naming your initiatives. I went back through the wiki pages and just looked at where there was some intersection and overlap between the center's various technology initiatives. And then I tried to just kind of group them together to give everybody somewhat of an idea of where things were falling. And so, Gretchen, why don't you launch TLI Fun? All right. So we have a chart up here, and much like Family Feud, feel free to shout out what you think is kind of a common theme among the initiatives. And then if you hit it, we'll show you the box that it's under. If you don't, we get a big X. But go ahead.
Developer update website.
Yep, website is on there.
Woo!
Online training.
Online, ooh, good one, Matthew.
Thank you.
Matthew hit number 1.
That's cute.
And these had to be mentioned at least twice to have made the list. So we've got 3 more to uncover here.
Access to technology by unserved families.
It's a good one, Godfrey, but it's
Whoa!
and it's probably, and I think we're kind of exploring that oftentimes within our initiatives, but it wasn't specific.
Right, okay.
Data management.
Go ahead.
Data management. It's a winner. All right, we got 2 more.
Social media.
Yes, social media. This last one's a little harder, but if you come close in saying it, because it may be my terminology, but feel free to shout out.
Use of video.
Video kind of got tied into online. Gretchen's going all crazy over here.
Staff development?
Yeah, we're going to give you staff development because it falls under this. So go ahead. That's kind of infrastructure and training. Nice job, everyone. All right, and so we were going to mention, in the future we're going to be exploring, with this intersection, how we can do some information sharing about the various initiatives that you have up. But that's going to be explored more in July, August, and September. Thank you for playing, everyone. All right, Gretchen, I think.
All right, the next thing we just wanted to cover were some next steps. The date for the first draft of Section 4 is the end of this month, and then we're moving into Activities 5 and 6. Activity 5 is kind of the implementation plan, so that's kind of the real nitty-gritty in terms of, staff people, and if you need any outside vendors or consultants, really looking at the timeline for actually completing, developing a timeline for completing your top 3 initiatives that are in your plan. And Activity 6 has to do with the overall budget. And so we have the dates up there for our upcoming webinars related to those activities as well as the deliverables. And also, just a reminder, Julie mentioned this earlier, but especially as we get towards this part of the roadmap, sections 4, 5, and 6 are all really interrelated. You'll probably be considering budget as you look at your implementation plan or looking at any infrastructure that might be needed or things like that. So certainly these might not be discrete activities. You might kind of flow in and out of them through the next couple of months. So although there is a kind of a clear breakdown, just to provide some structure, certainly feel free to be working, obviously, on any part of the rest of the roadmap in your plan as you see fit. Also, as we've been, kind of reaching out to each individual center, we've talked some about, ways that you can be more involved in the planning or things like that. So we'll be continuing to look for those types of opportunities from you as well. And we just kind of wanted to end with, does anyone have any questions now about anything that's been covered, either the timeline or the overall program that JC covered or Section 4? Is there anything that people want to ask about in our few remaining minutes here?
Gretchen, this is JC. You might have said it and I missed it, but were we going to talk a little bit about giving feedback about the sections that were posted and having centers give feedback?
Yeah, we have heard from some people that they would like some feedback in terms of what they've posted already, and whether, I think, if you're looking for individual feedback or kind of want to explore what else is on there from the wiki, we can certainly explore ways to do that.
Yeah, this is Julie. We'll put some information about how that might happen. I think we're still developing a strategy to achieve that. Other questions? All right, do you want to play Family Feud again? I've got more. Good. Well, if there's no other questions, we are here for you through the wiki, through email, through phone, between Gretchen and myself and JC and Roger. Feel free to reach out at any time where we want to help. And, we're just looking forward to continued great work together. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I think we're going to sign off the webinar. And Gretchen, again, will post the recording if it's available out on the wiki. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.